Part 175. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1751. Chapter 1745 Dragon Emperor's Divine Power. Surrounded by Dragon Emperors and Dragon Lords, Wu Yu and Tianxin Dragon Emperor have been confronting each other in an open area outside the Holy Dragon Domain. This place is relatively close to the Holy Dragon Domain, so no ordinary dragons will come here on weekdays. In addition, there are other Dragon Emperors and Dragon Lords guarding around, so their competition can basically only be seen by the high-ranking dragons present. I want to see what you are capable of now, Wu Yu. Tianxin Dragon Emperor stood in front of Wu Yu, exuding a powerful aura. He is one of the 9 Dragon Emperors in the Immortal Dragon Emperor realm and one of the strongest in the Immortal Dragon clan. He does not believe that Wu Yu has the strength to defeat him. You will know later. Wu Yu has been unhappy with Tianxin Dragon Emperor for a long time, but in the past, the gap between him and Tianxin Dragon Emperor was too big. Even Tianyu Dragon Lord, he spent all his strength to defeat him, not to mention Tianxin Dragon Emperor. The last time he came to the Immortal Dragon Emperor realm, Wu Yu was no match for the Tianxin Dragon Emperor. But this time, Wu Yu felt that he would not lose to him. Fighting Buddha, this inheritance is not just a casual talk. Any kind of magical power in the inheritance can allow me to cross a higher realm and defeat my opponent. Wu Yu is quite clear about his own strength. Since he has put forward a challenge, he must be sure to defeat his opponent. The only battle he has lost so far is the one with the Fire Dance Phoenix Lord. This is also the place where he has been entangled. He really wants to know what kind of great fortune the Fire Dance Phoenix Lord, or Nangongwei, has obtained. It's a pity that until now, Wu Yu has not got any clues. Tianxin Dragon Emperor and Wu Yu are both important figures in the Immortal Dragon clan. This battle has attracted the attention of all Dragon Emperors and Dragon Lords. They don't think Wu Yu can defeat Tianxin Dragon Emperor, but what if? You know, since Wu Yu set foot on the heavenly court, hasn't he created enough miracles? In any case, the answer will be revealed soon. As the Tianxin Dragon Emperor finally transformed into a dragon, a golden dragon appeared in the void, and the competition officially began. Let you know that the dignity of the Dragon Emperor cannot be insulted. The mighty voice of the Tianxin Dragon Emperor spread throughout the venue, and he suppressed Wu Yu with infinite momentum. Wu Yu was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. The battle had already begun, and defeating the opponent was the most important thing. It was useless to say anything more now. Seeing the Tianxin Dragon Emperor transform into a dragon, the terrifying aura quickly condensed, and seeing that a powerful magical power was about to burst out, he quickly displayed the law of heaven and earth. Emperor's magical power, Tianyi. As the Tianxin Dragon Emperor shouted angrily, Wu Yu sensed a terrifying power generated from the Qinqin space around his body, and compressed the entire Qinqin space. Vajra Shield. Wu Yu was covered in golden light, forming a very strong shield. When this shield was just formed, the Tianxin Dragon Emperor's imperial magical power finally fell. The world of heaven and earth around Wu Yu was completely compressed by the opponent's imperial power, and then condensed into a sphere next to Wu Yu's body. This sphere exploded with a bang, and the condensed power from the world of heaven and earth gave birth to the effect of shattering the void. In just a short moment, the space where Wu Yu was completely shattered. Even Wu Yu's diamond shield was shaken to the point of collapse. The terrifying void-shattering power kept coming, and even one wave was stronger than the other, shaking his diamond shield thinner and thinner. Until the end, no one knew how many waves of void shattered and how powerful the power was. The golden shield around Wu Yu finally collapsed completely. Fortunately, the imperial power of Tianxin Dragon Emperor Tianyi just ended, and the surrounding space finally calmed down. The gradually easing void had a terrifying feeling in Wu Yu's eyes. So strong. Wu Yu's heart became heavy. This Tianxin Dragon Emperor, with just the imperial power, seemed much stronger than some holy Buddhas in the Tianfo immortal realm. Even if the realm is the same, there are different levels of power. However, after the long-browed Arhat Saint Buddha devoured all the mortal beings in the Buddhist world, his power was almost the same as that of the current Tianxin Dragon Emperor. Wu Yu is now fully able to resist and confront Tianxin Dragon Emperor head-on. Tianxin Dragon Emperor was a little surprised when he saw that the void calmed down and Wu Yu was still intact. Originally, he felt that with his Tianyi magical power, he could directly shatter Wu Yu into the void, but he didn't expect that Wu Yu actually endured it and didn't seem to be hurt. This made Tianxin Dragon Emperor have a clearer understanding of Wu Yu. No wonder you have the guts to challenge this Dragon Emperor. The head of the dragon of Tianxin Dragon Emperor was raised, his eyes were like lightning, and there was contempt in them, but with your little power, it's still too early to defeat this Dragon Emperor. As soon as the voice fell, his dragon eyes suddenly released 1,000-foot light, which illuminated the sky and the earth, and instantly enveloped Wu Yu's whole body. When the 1,000-foot light bloomed, Wu Yu had no time to react. He could only close his eyes instinctively, but closing his eyes was useless. He could feel that the strong light in Tianxin Dragon Emperor's eyes had penetrated into his imperial realm and controlled everything in his imperial realm. Purify this Dragon Emperor. The voice of Tianxin Dragon Emperor seemed to come from a very far place. This chapter has not ended yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. Purification is the name of Tianxin Dragon Emperor's magical power. It is also a magical power of the Emperor, but this magical power of the Emperor is more powerful than the previous one Tianyi. Wu Yu felt that his Tiantian Emperor realm seemed to be completely controlled by this purifying light, and even made him feel that his mind was about to be scattered. If it continues like this, I am afraid that Wu Yu will soon lose consciousness completely, including the Tiantian Emperor realm. Everything will be controlled by the opponent. This is an extremely terrifying divine power of the Emperor, and even Wu Yu can't defend himself. Just a ray of light came, and his Emperor realm has fallen into the control of the opponent, without any sign at all. Now it has become extremely difficult for Wu Yu to resist. He maintained the last bit of clarity and tried hard to think if there is any way to crack the opponent's move. Ha ha ha. Wu Yu, your Emperor realm is controlled by this Dragon Emperor. What right do you have to fight this Dragon Emperor? The laughter of Tianxin Dragon Emperor seemed to come from a very distant world, making Wu Yu feel more like he was about to lose consciousness. I can't let him control me like this. Wu Yu gritted his teeth, and finally began to visualize the monkey mind and chant the scriptures of the indestructible body of diamond. In this way, he finally woke up a little, and could also feel that the Dragon Emperors and Dragon Lords who were watching the battle around him were talking about it. It seems that Wu Yu is going to lose. Under the purification magic of Tianxin Dragon Emperor, the Emperor immortal with a lower realm than him can hardly resist. The Emperor realm is the foundation of the Emperor immortal. Once the Emperor realm is controlled, everything will be over. It depends on when Tianxin Dragon Emperor can completely control him. Yes, it depends on how long Wu Yu can hold on, but with the means of a junior, it should be impossible to break the magic of Tianxin Dragon Emperor. The Dragon Emperors and Dragon Lords almost saw that Wu Yu was a little bit unable to hold on. But Wu Yu naturally refused to accept it. The discussion of the Dragon Emperor and Dragon Lord around him aroused his fighting spirit, and he kept thinking about the means and magical powers he could use. Finally, he thought of a possible means to fight against this purification. Exorcism. Wu Yu thought of this means. This is one of his 72 magical powers, and it is at the same level as violence, immobilization, etc. After rebuilding it into an imperial magical power, Wu Yu has not used it yet. The main reason is that he has not encountered a suitable occasion for him to use this method. But at this moment, he feels that the exorcism is just right to fight against the current means of Tianxin Dragon Emperor. The next moment, a clear and bright power emerged from his imperial realm, like a clear spring, and with a tyrannical power. The moment it appeared, it weakened the control of Tianxin Dragon Emperor over his imperial realm. At this moment, Tianxin Dragon Emperor simply felt incredible. This little Wu Yu actually had the power to resist. He couldn't help but strengthen his strength, wanting to destroy Wu Yu's resistance in one fell swoop. But at this time, Wu Yu's exorcism power burst out like a spring. In the next moment, before Tianxin Dragon Emperor could react, his power was completely expelled from the heaven-devouring Emperor realm. With a burst of explosions, Wu Yu regained control of his body, and his heaven-devouring Emperor realm finally got rid of the infiltration of Tianxin Dragon Emperor. The opponent's purification magic is equivalent to a means of controlling the soul. For Wu Yu, only the exorcism can be solved, and it just happens to restrain the opponent. Tianxin Dragon Emperor was a little shocked, but this did not distract him in the battle. When he felt that his soul control failed, he made a decisive decision and redisplayed another move of the Emperor's magic. Heavenly Heart. This move is equivalent to the innate magic of Tianxin Dragon Emperor. When he used it, his entire dragon body seemed to turn into a heaven, as if representing the will of heaven. Tianxin, the heart of heaven. When he used this magic, all the scenes in the scene seemed to dissipate. In front of Wu Yu, there was only a vast cloud of smoke, emitting a terrifying will and power. At the same time, there were waves of chanting sounds coming from all around, as if billions of creatures were chanting some kind of scripture at the same time. At this moment, Wu Yu felt that his entire Tiantian Emperor realm was shaken and trembling, and his mind was also impacted by the millions of chanting sounds. Almost at this moment, Wu Yu had a splitting headache, and even the Tiantian Emperor realm was about to be torn apart. Tianxin Dragon Emperor, the Dragon Emperor's innate magical power, was so powerful. At this moment, Wu Yu couldn't even feel everything around him. All he heard in his ears was the millions of chanting sounds that made his head split, and he felt that he was about to completely collapse. The update was slightly adjusted, 1 chapter today, 3 chapters tomorrow. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 1752. The divine power of the Emperor Dao, Tianxin, represents the heart of the heaven and recites billions of scriptures to shake the opponent's imperial realm. This is the killer method of Tianxin Dragon Emperor, which is the same move as his innate magical power. Now that it has just been used, it has completely suppressed Wu Yu. The terrifying recitation of billions of scriptures made Wu Yu's head split. The entire Tiantian Emperor realm was invaded and shaken by the opponent, as if the entire imperial realm would explode in the next moment. I didn't expect that he would use such a powerful magical power just after he escaped from his control of the imperial realm. Wu Yu gritted his teeth, but the increasingly severe pain in his head made him know that he had to fight quickly. If it continues like this, he is likely to be defeated here, which he absolutely cannot tolerate. So, he once again visualized the heart ape, and when the golden ape appeared violently in his heart, the bursts of golden light made his mind a little clearer. However, it was only a little bit quieter. The opponent's heavenly heart magical power was simply pervasive. Billions of scriptures were recited into his ears, and he soon had an uncontrollable thought again. The heaven-devouring Emperor realm was all crumbling, as if it was about to be torn apart. Break it for me. Violence technique. The sky collapsed and the earth split. Wu Yu could only grit his teeth and concentrate all his strength on the Ruyi Jingbang in his hand. With the blessing of the violence technique, his whole body strength increased terribly. At this moment, he even had the power to directly pierce a side of the Emperor's realm. Then, it was the magical power of the sky collapsing and the earth splitting, which was brazenly hit with the Ruyi Jingbang. The force that could almost shatter the entire space was instantly poured out, sweeping towards the arrogant Tianxin Dragon Emperor in the sky. The Ruyi Jingbang broke through the air and smashed down, blasting out with the magical power of the sky collapsing and the earth splitting. The entire void around here seemed to be smashed by the stick, and the terrifying power set off a space wave and exploded towards the surroundings. The recitation of the billions of scriptures could have brought an extreme threat to Wu Yu. But after the stick hit, the sound of the recitation of these scriptures stopped abruptly. Wu Yu's originally shaky Tiandi realm finally returned to stability. The heavenly heart magical power of the Tianxin Dragon Emperor had been completely broken by Wu Yu. However, at this moment, Wu Yu used violent magic, and his own loss was not light. Even for a period of time, he was in a relatively weak state. So he had no time to sigh. When the other dragon lords and dragon emperors who were watching the battle around were a little surprised, Wu Yu's next method had already been launched. Law of Heaven and Earth. Break the world. Wu Yu used his two great magical powers at the same time, and his body suddenly changed to the size of a small world, standing upright, with amazing power, accompanied by a punch in the air. The strongest magical power derived from the somersault cloud, shattering realm, exerted a perfect force of shattering realm at this moment, instantly shattering the space and erupting in the divine dragon body of Tianxin Dragon Emperor. At this moment, Tianxin Dragon Emperor was still stunned that his innate magical power Tianxin was broken, and then came Wu Yu's terrifying method of killing the enemy. Tianxin Dragon Emperor had not reacted at all. Wu Yu's punch had already shaken the space, and shattered the divine dragon body of Tianxin Dragon Emperor together. Tianxin Dragon Emperor's Tianxin realm, at this moment, completely endured Wu Yu's punch of shattering realm, and some cracks appeared in the entire void. These cracks were much more serious than those suffered by Wu Yu's Tiantian Emperor realm before. Before Wu Yu's Tiantian Emperor realm was attacked, at least there were no cracks, just some shaking, and it was shaky. But now, Tianxin Dragon Emperor's Emperor realm has suffered a certain amount of damage. Although it failed to completely shatter it, it had already made Tianxin Dragon Emperor extremely weak. A large mouthful of blood spurted out of his dragon mouth, and the entire body of the dragon retreated violently, and his breath became weak. Wu Yu shattered the world with one move, and decided the fate of the world, so that Tianxin Dragon Emperor was completely defeated. Although Wu Yu himself was not feeling well and had basically exhausted all his strength, he knew that he had won this battle when he saw Tianxin Dragon Emperor spurting blood and retreating violently. Wu Yu won. This result was hard for the dragon emperors and dragon lords who were watching around to believe. They thought they were dazzled for a while, but after looking carefully, they found that Tianxin Dragon Emperor was indeed seriously injured. If the battle continued, Tianxin Dragon Emperor's entire empire would probably be shattered, causing him to lose his life. On the other hand, although Wu Yu's empire was shaken several times, he did not suffer any substantial damage, which was obviously much better than Tianxin Dragon Emperor's condition. Tianyu Dragon Lord stepped forward and supported Tianxin Dragon Emperor. Tianxin Dragon Emperor came back to his senses and found that his empire was cracked by Wu Yu's punch. He was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. How could he have thought that he would lose to Wu Yu, whom he always looked down upon? This Wu Yu is obviously just a junior. How could he grow to the point where he could defeat him in such a short time? This kid. Tianxin Dragon Emperor's face was extremely gloomy. He felt that Wu Yu might be hiding a huge secret, but he couldn't figure out what kind of secret could make a junior improve so quickly. Since Wu Yu came to the Heavenly Court, it seems that all the major events in the Heavenly Court are related to Wu Yu. Every time you hear news about Wu Yu, you will find that he has become stronger. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. And this time, Tianxin Dragon Emperor himself became the source of the news. Wu Yu defeated him, and this news is bound to spread throughout the Heavenly Court. Wu Yu's momentum will reach an unprecedented level, and he, Tianxin Dragon Emperor, will probably become the object of ridicule of countless other emperors and immortals. Thinking of this, Tianxin Dragon Emperor was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. Obviously, he has become a stepping stone on Wu Yu's road to progress. At first, he thought that Wu Yu dared to provoke him and was completely looking for death. Until now, he realized that Wu Yu really had the strength to defeat him and had become a top emperor and immortal in the entire heavenly court. Not only Tianxin Dragon Emperor and Tianyu Dragon Lord were so shocked, but the other Dragon Emperors and Dragon Lords were the same. It was hard to believe the result of this competition. As a fairy dragon lord, Wu Jun was also among the fairy dragons watching the battle. Originally, he had planned to stand up and plead for Wu Yu if he was at a disadvantage and could not turn the tables. You know, Wu Yu dared to provoke Tianxin Dragon Emperor. If he was defeated, he would definitely get some lessons. Tianxin Dragon Emperor would not easily let Wu Yu who provoked him go. This was exactly what Bai Yin Dragon King and Bai Qin Dragon King were worried about before. However, what was unexpected was that Wu Yu, who was suppressed in the early stage, turned the situation around and defeated Tianxin Dragon Emperor with the epic artifact of the Golden Stick. This made Wu Jun open his mouth wide until now, as if he couldn't close it at all. The shock Wu Yu brought to him this time really made him feel like he was in a dream. You know, the last time Wu Yu was still in this fairy dragon emperor world, defeating Tianyu Dragon Lord was already very shocking. But compared with Tianxin Dragon Emperor, Tianyu Dragon Lord is more than one level weaker. After such a short time, Wu Jun himself has not even been able to break through one level, but Wu Yu has actually been able to defeat the 5th level of the Eternal Emperor Tianxin Dragon Emperor. This growth speed, if spread to the entire heavenly court, I am afraid no one dares to believe it, unless there is a real example in front of them. And this time, Wu Yu challenged Tianxin Dragon Emperor and won, which is the most striking fact. Wu Yu, who was originally considered a junior genius in the heavenly court no matter how much noise he made, has now risen strongly and has grown to such a point. I won. Wu Yu felt relieved when he saw Tianxin Dragon Emperor being defeated by him. The pain he had experienced for so long finally paid off. In the Tianfo immortal realm, he could defeat the 5th level of the Supreme Saint Buddha realm, so naturally he could also defeat the 5th level of the Emperor of Heaven. Of course, Tianxin Dragon Emperor is not weak. Among the juniors in the entire heavenly court, no one except Wu Yu could possibly defeat him. Even with just one encounter, the Tianxin Dragon Emperor can crush any junior in the heavenly court. I've gotten rid of my anger this time, but it will definitely attract more attention from the entire heavenly court. Wu Yu thought to himself, knowing that the news of his defeat of the Tianxin Dragon Emperor would definitely spread quickly. If Tai Genren came after hearing the news, he would have a hard time explaining. So next, when the Dragon Emperors and Dragon Lords wanted to keep Wu Yu and stay in the immortal Dragon Emperor realm, Wu Yu directly refused, saying that he had something else to do and had to leave the immortal Dragon Emperor realm first. Many Dragon Emperors and Dragon Lords felt a little sorry, and asked Wu Yu to bring Luo Bin back to see him more often when he was free. Wu Yu was about to leave, and Luo Bin would of course follow him, as she was well aware of the various crises Wu Yu was facing now. If he stayed in the heavenly court, the one he was most afraid of was Tai Genren. But now Wu Yu didn't dare to go to the Tianfo immortal realm, so there was no way, he could only take one step at a time. Almost at the same time when the news of Wu Yu defeating Tianxin Dragon Emperor spread, Wu Yu and Luo Bin left the immortal Dragon Emperor realm together. This made Bai Yin Dragon King and Bai Qin Dragon King a little regretful. They really hoped that Wu Yu and Luo Bin could stay for a while longer. And the news that Wu Yu defeated Tianxin Dragon Emperor finally spread throughout the heavenly court like a whirlwind. Whether it was the older generation of Emperor Immortals or the younger generation of geniuses, they all heard about such a thing. So there was a shocking frenzy in the entire heavenly court. No one thought that Wu Yu, who had just been in the limelight in the Emperor Immortal trial not long ago, had actually grown to the point where he could defeat Tianxin Dragon Emperor. How embarrassed is this for the other young generation of geniuses in the heavenly court? You know, the group of geniuses who participated in the Emperor Immortal trial with Wu Yu back then have either just become Emperor Immortals or are still working hard to become Emperor Immortals. Looking at Wu Yu again, you can clearly feel the huge gap between Wu Yu and them, which has reached an immeasurable level. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 1753. The whole heaven was overwhelmed by the news that Wu Yu defeated Tianxin Dragon Emperor. Yang Jian, the son of Erlang Shen Yang Jian, had just made a breakthrough recently and was very proud of himself. He was thinking about teaching Wu Yu a lesson when he met him. Unexpectedly, the news that Wu Yu defeated Tianxin Dragon Emperor in the Immortal Dragon Emperor realm came suddenly. This news made Yang Jian dumbfounded and unbelievable. During the Emperor Immortal trial, Wu Yu was only comparable to him. He always thought that he lost to Wu Yu because of luck. But after just tens of thousands of years, Wu Yu had left him far behind, which made him feel like giving up on himself. You know, what level is Tianxin Dragon Emperor? The 5th level of the Eternal Emperor Immortal. That is a level that can be said to be talked about in the whole heaven. Like the 4 heavenly kings and the ancient giant spirit god, they are at this level. This level of Emperor Immortal is respected wherever he goes in the heavenly court, and is one of the most important components of the heavenly court. Yang Jian thought that he was still far from this level, and it would take a long time to settle down before he could reach it one day. He was not in a hurry at first, but now, the news that Wu Yu defeated the Dragon Emperor of Tianxin came, which made him want to kill himself. He has a strong self-esteem, and now, he is far behind a young genius of the same generation. How can he not feel hopeless? Other young geniuses who have participated in the Emperor Immortal trial and fought with Wu Yu all felt incredible. Originally, during the Emperor Immortal trial tens of thousands of years ago, the gap between them and Wu Yu could still be seen. But now, after only tens of thousands of years, Wu Yu can actually defeat the Dragon Emperor of Tianxin? Fairy Yao Yun, Fairy Ling Mi, Lei Tianyuan, Zhou Niankang, and other descendants of the Emperor Immortals in the heavenly court even felt that they were trash. In just tens of thousands of years, they have reached the 5th level of the Emperor Immortal. And what about them? Some are still struggling at the Emperor Immortal level. How big is this gap? And this also made many Emperor Immortals begin to suspect that Wu Yu must have some big secrets, just like the Fire Dance Phoenix King of the Immortal Phoenix realm at that time. Perhaps he got some extremely terrifying fortune. But the situation is different from other places with the Pagoda Heavenly King Li Jing and Neza. Since the Emperor Immortal trial, Li Tianji, the grandson of Li Jing and the son of Neza, has been staying indoors all day, immersed in the decadence of losing to Wu Yu. He spent all day drinking, getting drunk, and even being so decadent that even the Emperor Immortal didn't want to sprint. After tens of thousands of years, Li Tianji is still wasting his time. The loss to Wu Yu that year caused Li Tianji's spirit to suffer a great stimulation. Neza felt that he was spoiled too much on weekdays, so he couldn't even withstand such a small storm, while Li Jing, the pagoda-bearing heavenly king, had long hated Wu Yu and had always wanted to find an opportunity to deal with Wu Yu to avenge his beloved grandson. When the news of Wu Yu's defeat of Tianxin Dragon Emperor came, Neza and Li Jing didn't tell Li Tianji at all. They were afraid that Li Tianji would not be able to bear the blow and would want to commit suicide again. Li Jing walked with Neza. When he got the news, he was silent for a moment, and then Li Jing asked, "I heard that some time ago, Wu Yu asked Tai Genren for something." "Yes, it seems that he took his epic artifact in exchange and asked Genren to resurrect his sister for him." Neza nodded and said. "But I heard that Wu Yu's epic artifact later returned to Wu Yu's hands, and then this kid disappeared." Li Jing snorted coldly. "It seems that this is true, but even Tai Genren can't find Wu Yu. What can we do?" Neza was a little puzzled. Of course, he also wanted to teach Wu Yu a lesson. After all, it was Wu Yu who turned his son Li Tianji into a decadent alcoholic. But as he said now, even Tai Genren couldn't find Wu Yu, let alone them. It's different now. Li Jing, the pagoda-bearing heavenly king, sneered and said, Tai Genren is your master. Tell him the news that Wu Yu defeated Tianxin Dragon Emperor. Originally, Wu Yu's level was too low to be in the eyes of the Jade Emperor, but now that he can defeat Tianxin Dragon Emperor, he is also a heavyweight in the heavenly court. You mean, this matter can be solved by the Jade Emperor? Neza's eyes lit up immediately. That's right, Li Jing, the pagoda-bearing heavenly king, nodded, with a fierce light in his eyes. In his opinion, as long as the Jade Emperor got involved in this matter, Wu Yu would never get away with it. After all, in the transaction with Tai Genren, Wu Yu was absolutely the party at a disadvantage. I'll go find the real person right now. Neza didn't dare to delay, and immediately stepped on the epic artifact of the wind and fire wheel, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Wu Yu took Luo Bin and returned to Fangkuntian, the Ziyu Sangxing Cave Immortal Mansion. There was good news as soon as he came back, that is, in this short period of time, Nanshan Wanjiao and Yezixi broke through one after another and finally reached the realm of the Eternal Emperor. You know, Wu Yu and Luo Bin returned to the Immortal Dragon Emperor realm and challenged the Tianxin Dragon Emperor, which didn't take too much time. As a result, they were able to be so fast, which surprised Wu Yu a little. What's the point? Didn't you, old Wu, pass on the inheritance to us? Nanshan Wanjiao didn't care. For him, it was already embarrassing that he failed to break through when Wu Yu passed it on to him. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. You must know that Luo Bin directly entered the realm of Emperor Immortal after being inherited by Wu Yu. As for Nanshan Wanjiao and Yezixi, they did not make breakthroughs immediately after being inherited. Instead, it took them a while to comprehend. In the eyes of the two of them, this is already very embarrassing, considering that their inheritance is at the same level. Even though Luo Bin's inheritance, including bloodline and dragon shape, seems to be more thorough, in the eyes of Nanshan Wanjiao and Yezixi, there is not much difference. But how do they know that when Wu Yu passed on the inheritance to Luo Bin, they did so in the most intimate manner? In that case, the inheritance effect would be much better. By the way, Lao Wu, Patriarch Bodhi seems to have something to do with you. It seems to be about Master Tai. You'd better go and have a look. I feel like something big is going to happen. Nanshan Wanjiao said to Wu Yu. Wu Yu's expression was a little solemn, but this matter always had to be faced. He would definitely go to see Patriarch Bodhi and see what Patriarch Bodhi had to say about it. As for Nanshan Wanjiao and Yezixi, they finally broke through to the realm of Emperor Immortal, and Wu Yu felt a lot more relieved. After all, after reaching Emperor Immortal, his status in heaven is completely different. What's more, as long as Nanshan Wanjiao and Yezixi comprehend and rebuild their respective magical powers into imperial magical powers, their combat effectiveness will be the same as that of Wu Yu, directly approaching the third level of the Emperor Immortal. As a result, there were far fewer threats to the two of them in heaven. What's more, the biggest focus in the entire heaven is still on Wu Yu. There would be no one who would be bored and trouble Nanshan Wanjiao and Ye 11. Soon, Wu Yu stepped into the Bodhi hall again and saw Patriarch Bodhi, who looked a little unhappy. Disciple meets the Patriarch. Wu Yu saluted respectfully. No gift. Patriarch Bodhi raised his hand slightly, sighed, and said with some worry, Wu Yu, what are your plans for the Ruyi Golden Cudgel? I want to hear your thoughts. It's really about this issue. Wu Yu thought for a while, and of course it was impossible for him to tell the truth. After all, it was related to the Tianfo Immortal Realm. At this point, he didn't dare to completely trust even Patriarch Bodhi. So he could only say, this Ruyi Golden Cudgel has some important meanings to the disciple. What the disciple wants is to give it to Master Tai after completing that matter. In these words, he did not lie, he just concealed the information about the Tianfo immortal realm. After hearing this, Patriarch Bodhi did not ask any further questions. However, he said with some worry, recently, the whole heaven seems to be spreading this matter. Even the Emperor Immortal of Fang Kunshan has learned about it. Many people think that you are a treacherous person and do not keep your promises. Hearing what Patriarch Bodhi said, Yu felt a little guilty. Although there was no way around it, this matter did bring trouble to Patriarch Bodhi and the entire Fang Kun Tian. Yu could only bow and say, "Disciple is sorry to the Patriarch. It's just this matter, disciple is also a little helpless." Patriarch Bodhi nodded and made a suggestion, "It's impossible for Master Tai to give up. I'm afraid he will find a way soon. By then, you won't be able to escape even if you want to. See if you want to find someone time to send him the Ruyi golden cudgel. Disciple will consider it." Yu could only reply like this, and at the same time he said sorry in his heart. He did feel a little sorry for Patriarch Bodhi over this matter, and it might even bring Patriarch Bodhi into infamy. However, this Ruyi golden cudgel is related to the heavenly Buddha immortal realm, and the Tianfo immortal realm makes Yu feel that it is the place closest to the truth of the great changes a million years ago. Giving up the Ruyi golden cudgel was equivalent to giving up the truth of the year, which was unacceptable to Yu. Regarding the rumors in the entire heaven that Yu was a treacherous person, Yu was fearless. After all, he wanted to stick to his ideals. Even if he was reviled by thousands of people, so what? He was only afraid that he would not be able to fulfill the promise he had made. Is it possible that we should tell Master Tai clearly? Let him have a period of grace. When Yu left the Bodhi Hall, he thought about it, but quickly shook his head, thinking that this was impossible. After all, for people at the level of Master Tai, why should we give him this period of grace? Or, go to the demon god realm and hide for a while, then wait until you can't escape anymore. Yu thought of another way. "I'm sorry that I didn't write chapter 3 today. I'll write another chapter tomorrow." Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 1754. No matter what, Master Tai hasn't come to the door yet. So after Yu left the Bodhi Hall, he planned to continue practicing. As for the matter of Master Tai, he could slowly think about it and see if there was any solution. Now Nanshan Wanjiao, Yezixi and Luo Bai have all broken through to the level of Emperor Immortal, and their combat effectiveness has also reached the level of the third level of Immortal Emperor Immortal. This made Yu feel like he was about to be chased. After all, he could only deal with the 5th level Emperor Immortal, which was only 2 levels higher than them. So at this time, he planned to continue practicing. The next training is the 4th level of the Immortal Emperor Immortal, which is called Reincarnation. The effect of this level of devouring cultivation was only average, but Yu sometimes went to the Eternal Emperor's burial, and sometimes devoured the relics of the Holy Buddha. He devoured the two alternately, which still allowed him to improve much faster than ordinary Emperor Immortals. In his heaven-swallowing Emperor realm, a lot of black energy would be generated if he swallowed it quickly. But now, the frequency of his devouring is not high. He only chooses to devour every once in a while, so of course there is no problem. If you want to form reincarnation in the heaven-devouring Emperor's realm, you must have a place to store souls, similar to the hell in human legends. Yu thought to himself that it would be quite difficult to build a reincarnation in the realm of the Emperor swallowing heaven. What he wanted to create was a place he called the Emperor Prison to store the souls of mortals who died in the heaven-devouring Emperor realm. In this way, a kind of reciprocation of life can be formed in the Tian Emperor realm and the effect of reincarnation can be achieved. This reincarnation is the 4th level of the Immortal Emperor Immortal. But now, Yu feels a little confused. Although he has devoured many holy Buddha relics and Emperor demon corpses and gained a lot of experience, it is still difficult for him to directly break through this level. It was as if there was a thin film blocking him, preventing him from completely creating the Emperor's prison and building it into a complete reincarnation. However, Wu Yu was not in a hurry. He also knew that the cultivation of Emperor Immortal could never be achieved overnight. He can possess the method of devouring, which is already many times faster than ordinary Emperor Immortals, which is equivalent to taking a shortcut. But in some key steps, he couldn't complete it by relying on swallowing, and he could only rely on himself. Just when Wu Yu was concentrating on training. Inside the Xuanhuan Golden Light Cave, Neza, the great god of Santan Haihui, finally came to find his master, Tai Genren. At this moment, Tai Genren was worried about the Ruyi golden cudgel. After all, although he spread the rumors that Wu Yu did not keep his promise, which caused a lot of reputational damage to Wu Yu and even the entire patriarch Fankan Tianbody, it had no effect on himself. He wanted to get the Ruyi golden cudgel, but still couldn't do it. So he had been drinking in the golden light cave of Qianyuan heaven, and only went out to take a look every once in a while. In this immortal mansion cave, no one came to disturb him. Until today, Neza finally came. Master, there is something that I want to report to you. As soon as Neza arrived, he talked directly to Master Tai without any politeness. His life was saved by Master Tai with the everlasting lotus. He naturally respects Master Tai very much. So this time, Tai Genren lost the Ruyi golden cudgel, and he must come to help. What's the matter? Master Tai took a sip of wine and asked lazily. Master, have you heard that Wu Yu recently defeated Tianxin Dragon Emperor, one of the 9 dragon emperors of the immortal dragon clan? Neza came forward respectfully and asked directly. Oh? Is this the case? Master Tai has been drinking heavily recently, but he has never heard of this. Mainly, he didn't expect that Wu Yu would appear on his own initiative after disappearing, and still appear in such a high-profile manner, defeating a dragon emperor. Upon hearing what Neza said, Master Tai immediately put down his wine glass and became quite interested. It's absolutely true. Moreover, in the process of fighting against Tianxin Dragon Emperor, he also used the artifact of the era, the Ruyi golden cudgel. That should be what you want to find, Master, right? Neza explained the situation. This situation made Master Tai sneer. This Wu Yu, forget it if he doesn't come out. Once he comes out, he will use my Ruyi golden cudgel to defeat Tianxin Dragon Emperor. It's simply unreasonable. Disciple, do you know where Wu Yu is now? Master Tai asked immediately. I don't know now, but my disciple guesses that he is either at Patriarch Bodhi's place, or he has disappeared like before. Neza thought about it and said, if he is at Patriarch Bodhi's place, even if we come to find him, Patriarch Bodhi may not admit it, and he will probably protect that kid. Master Tai nodded seriously, and then asked, what can you do? He did know that if he went to see Patriarch Bodhi like this, it would probably not yield any results. After all, he had gone to see Patriarch Bodhi before and ended up having a bad time. Neza lowered his voice and whispered, Master, we can do this. Since Wu Yu defeated the Tianxin Dragon Emperor, he can be regarded as one of the top emperors in heaven. If matters of this level are handled by the Jade Emperor, he will definitely bring justice to us. After hearing this, Master Tai nodded with satisfaction, this is a good idea, let's do it like this. With the Jade Emperor coming forward, Patriarch Bodhi would not dare to protect the child with a yellow mouth. The Ruyi golden cudgel belongs to this master. It's really infuriating that he took away so much time. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. Don't worry, Master. If the Jade Emperor summons you, that kid will never dare to hide anymore, Neza said with a confident smile. Let's go, follow my master to meet the Jade Emperor, and ask the Jade Emperor to summon the boy. Tai Genren stopped drinking and immediately took Neza and flew to the highest level of the 8,000 heavenly palace, Ling Xiaotian. On this day, Wu Yu was practicing in Fangkuntian when he suddenly received a message from Patriarch Bodhi. The Jade Emperor of Heaven actually issued an edict to see me. Patriarch Bodhi's messenger talisman came with such a message, which surprised Wu Yu. The first thing he thought of must be about Master Tai. When he set out to rush back to the Bodhi Hall and saw Patriarch Bodhi, the Patriarch nodded and said that it was Master Tai who reported the matter to the Jade Emperor and asked the Jade Emperor to come forward to resolve the matter. This is not fun anymore. Wu Yu had a bad feeling. The Jade Emperor is one of the strongest people in the entire heavenly court and the entire 8,000 heavenly palace. It can be said that he has the highest status in the heavenly court. If the Jade Emperor summoned him, he would definitely not dare not go. How to deal with this? No matter what, the guide to Ling Xiaotian will be here soon. Let's go first and think of something on the way. After Patriarch Bodhi finished speaking, he took Wu Yu away from Fangkuntian and went to the Well of Eternal Life. Wu Yu never expected that the Jade Emperor would know about this matter and even ask him to summon him. If it doesn't work, I can only hand over the Ruyi Golden Cudgel. Patriarch Bodhi sighed, helpless about this. Although he had persuaded Wu Yu before to hand over the Ruyi Golden Cudgel, at this moment, even he was a little reluctant to give it up. It can be seen that Patriarch Bodhi knows what this Ruyi Golden Cudgel means to Wu Yu. Let's see what the Jade Emperor will say first. Wu Yu is a little nervous now. You know, the Jade Emperor is now the #1 immortal in heaven, and is the supreme existence. The entire heaven is controlled by the Jade Emperor. It is very likely that things like the Monkey King, the Demon God realm, and the Heavenly Buddha Immortal realm will be related to the Jade Emperor. Now, although the situation in the Heavenly Palace Immortal realm and the Tianfo Immortal realm are different, Wu Yu felt a sense of fear when he thought of the Supreme Buddha Xianzang he saw in the Tianfo Immortal realm. He would definitely not dare to go to the Heavenly Buddha Immortal realm now. If he was discovered by Xianzang, the end would probably be extremely miserable. As for the Demon God realm, since the Jade Emperor could personally lead the Heavenly Emperor Immortals to besiege and destroy the Demon God realm, he might have a way to go there. Therefore, it was not an option for Wu Yu to hide in the Demon God realm. In this way, when summoned by the Jade Emperor, Wu Yu had no other choice but to go to the audience. As for whether to hand over the Ruyi Golden Cudgel, we can only decide when the time comes. What Wu Yu is even more worried about now is that if the Jade Emperor is related to that incident, will he recognize his inheritance and the Ruyi Golden Cudgel? If he recognized him, what would the Jade Emperor's attitude be towards him? In any case, now he can only go to heaven to meet the Jade Emperor. Perhaps this can be considered an opportunity. Wu Yu said to himself secretly, not completely frightened. After all, before this, it was almost impossible for him to really see the Jade Emperor in heaven. Until now, he has defeated Tianxin Dragon Emperor and reached such a level. Perhaps Tai Genren will choose to sue the Jade Emperor. Meeting the Jade Emperor in this way was a bit surprising to Wu Yu, but maybe there would be some turning points. After all, Wu Yu has a mission to discover the truth of that year. There are still benefits to being able to meet the Jade Emperor, but it would be too much to pay for it with the Ruyi Golden Cudgel. When the time comes, let's first ask Master Tai if there are other ways to compensate. It would be great if we can exchange it for other things. Wu Yu thought to himself. At this moment, from Fangkuntian's Well of Eternal Life, several important figures from heaven descended and appeared in front of Patriarch Bodhi and Wu Yu. These people were really familiar to Wu Yu. Because the person who appeared in front of him was his old enemy, King Dhritarashtra. King Chiguo is one of the 4 heavenly kings. He originally did such things for the Jade Emperor. Once the Jade Emperor wants to summon someone, the 4 heavenly kings are responsible for bringing him to the Lingxiao Palace. Next to the heavenly king Chiguo was another old enemy of Wu Yu, the ancient giant spirit god. He actually came here with the heavenly king Chiguo. After appearing in front of Wu Yu, the expressions of King Chiguo and the ancient giant spirit god sneered, with a kind of gloating, heaven-swallowing record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1755. The heavenly King Chiguo and the ancient giant spirit god came out of the well of eternal life and came to Wu Yu and Bodhi Patriarch. Oh, you kid, you've even been targeted by the Jade Emperor. You're doomed this time. The heavenly King Chiguo said first. He and Wu Yu had been at odds for a long time, but he had never been able to do anything to Wu Yu. For the heavenly King Chiguo, Wu Yu was a thorn in his heart. Before, during the Emperor Immortal trial, the heavenly King Chiguo thought that Wu Yu would be killed by Yang Jian, the son of Yang Jian, or by Li Tianji in the Emperor Immortal trial. But he didn't expect that Wu Yu would be able to defeat Yang Jian and Li Tianji in the end and win the first place in the entire Emperor Immortal trial. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. This was something he never expected. Moreover, before that, Wu Yu actually survived the battlefield of the demons, and was blocked by Bodhi Patriarch in advance, so that he dared not do anything excessive to Wu Yu. After all, to the heavenly King Chiguo, Wu Yu was just a junior. He had promised not to attack him. If he did it again, wouldn't he be ridiculed by everyone in the heavenly court? But this time, the heavenly King Chiguo was happy. Because Wu Yu was summoned by the Jade Emperor for deceiving Taigenren. In this case, how could Wu Yu have a good ending? I didn't expect that a disciple of Bodhi Patriarch would break his promise to Taigenren and snatch back the treasure that had been sent. It's really embarrassing. The ancient giant spirit sneered at this time, glanced at Wu Yu and said, "The Jade Emperor will definitely punish him severely this time." His words were not pleasant to hear. After all, Bodhi Patriarch was right next to Wu Yu now. Saying it in front of him was a bit embarrassing for Bodhi Patriarch. However, the giant spirit god had waited for this opportunity for too long, and he didn't want to miss it. Anyway, what he said was the truth. Even if he took it to the Jade Emperor, he would have a clear conscience and would not be afraid at all. The words of the heavenly King Chiguo and the giant spirit god attracted the attention of many immortals around. Many immortals gathered here and discussed privately in groups of 3 or 2. The focus of the discussion was mainly on Wu Yu. After all, the recent things about Wu Yu had spread throughout the heaven. What does this have to do with you? Wu Yu was too lazy to pay attention to the 2 people. If he had said that, he would have needed a little awe when he saw the heavenly King Chiguo and the ancient giant spirit god in the past. After all, his strength was not as good as the other party. But now, in his eyes, he has defeated several 5th-level emperors. This heavenly King Chiguo, like the giant spirit god, is the 5th-level emperor. For Wu Yu, he is already a defeated general. If this heavenly King Chiguo was really so powerful, why would he guard the Jade Emperor's door and act as a guide? Yes, this has nothing to do with us. The ancient giant spirit snorted coldly. However, it is said that you defeated Tianxin Dragon Emperor, one of the 9 dragon emperors in the immortal dragon realm. So what? Wu Yu glanced at him and replied. Humph, this Tianxin Dragon Emperor is really old and useless. He can't even beat someone who has just reached the Emperor Immortal. It's really embarrassing for us Emperor Immortals. The ancient giant spirit said coldly, people who don't know would think that the Emperor Immortals of our generation are as useless as him. From his tone, it can be heard that he was very unhappy that Tianxin Dragon Emperor actually lost to Wu Yu. In his eyes, Wu Yu had just entered the Emperor Immortal realm not long ago, and he could actually defeat the 5th-level Emperor Immortal. This is unlikely. It must be that Tianxin Dragon Emperor is too weak. He wanted to teach Wu Yu a lesson and let him know that not all 5th-level Emperor Immortals are so useless. However, he was struggling to find any reason. Wu Yu happened to see his thoughts and deliberately said, "Forget it, why don't we fight here and give you a chance to avenge your son, so that you won't be entangled in the future. It's also good for you to know that maybe you are not as good as Tianxin Dragon Emperor." When these words came out, the ancient giant spirit was happy and angry at the time. What made him happy was that Wu Yu actually took the initiative to ask him to fight, and what made him angry was that Wu Yu actually looked down on him. Isn't it just defeating an old dragon? What's so great? How dare he look down on him, the giant spirit? In that case, then come on, let this immortal teach you a lesson, so that you don't know what to do when you go to Lingxiao Palace and offend the Jade Emperor. The ancient giant spirit said in a high-sounding manner, with a cold expression, and then pointed to the sky and flew up first. Wu Yu glanced at Bodhi Patriarch and found that he did not stop him, but smiled kindly, so he knew that he did not object to this battle. So Wu Yu flew into the sky, following closely behind the ancient giant spirit. The area around the Well of Eternal Life was originally a place where immortals came and went. The two people's posture of about to fight attracted many immortals to watch. Look, it's the giant spirit who wants to fight Wu Yu. This is something to watch. It is said that Wu Yu defeated a dragon emperor. I wonder if it is true or not. If it is true, the dragon emperor is too useless. He actually lost to a junior who just became an emperor immortal. Stop talking like that. In my opinion, it must be that Wu Yu is too amazing. After all, during the Emperor Immortal trial, so many Emperor Immortal descendants didn't beat him. Now even if he defeated the Dragon Emperor, it's normal. Many immortals whispered and discussed the two sides of this battle. Chiguo Tianhuan was also watching from the side, with a sneer on his face. Obviously, he heard that many immortals around him were not optimistic about Wu Yu. After all, the ancient giant spirit god is a veteran emperor immortal in the heavenly court. His strength has been witnessed by all for tens of thousands of years. He is a very powerful existence. And Wu Yu, no matter how powerful he is just a new emperor immortal. Even if he improves faster, how can he reach the level of the ancient giant spirit god in such a short time? In the sky, the ancient giant spirit god didn't say anything. He hated Wu Yu in his heart. How could he let go of this opportunity to teach Wu Yu? He immediately transformed into a huge immortal body. Inside that extremely huge immortal body, a giant spirit emperor realm was clearly visible, with an extremely powerful suppressive force. There was a look of satisfaction in the eyes of the giant spirit god, because he felt that this was the last time he could possibly defeat Wu Yu. You know, Wu Yu has such a great talent, it is very likely that he will not have the chance to avenge his son in the near future. It is also very good to be able to vent his anger at this time. Die for me, giant spirit suppress. The rough face of the ancient giant spirit god was fierce, and his whole body became infinitely huge. He turned out to be like the Holy Buddha, with a similar physical combat magic. Along with his suppression of the imperial magic, his huge giant spirit body was like the sky, and he quickly suppressed Wu Yu, and even the void was squeezed and exploded along the way. This giant spirit is really fighting, too strong, he has used all his strength. Will Wu Yu die here? In my opinion, Wu Yu should be in danger. Such a terrifying suppression force, even other fifth-level emperors may not be able to stop it, how can Wu Yu? Many people around were watching, pointing, and talking, their faces changed a little. Originally, they thought it would be a wonderful battle, but now it seems that it won't take long for the battle to end. The main reason is that the ancient giant spirit was so heavy that he didn't intend to give Wu Yu a chance to live. As the terrifying giant spirit body pressed down, Wu Yu was not afraid at all. For him, the giant spirit suppression magic of the ancient giant spirit was about the same power as the Buddhist suppression of the cloth bag Arhat and the long-browed Arhat. It is absolutely impossible to defeat Wu Yu now with this alone. Immobilization technique. Heaven and earth collapse. In a split second, Wu Yu pulled out the Ruyi golden cudgel, and used the immobilization technique to immobilize the ancient giant spirit god, and then swung the stick at his giant spirit body. The immobilization technique made the entire body of the ancient giant spirit god unable to move. At this moment, he could only watch the Ruyi golden cudgel heading towards his face. Before the audience around him could react, Wu Yu had already hit the ancient giant spirit god with a stick. The tyrannical force attached to the heaven and earth collapse technique directly repelled the giant spirit body of the ancient giant spirit god, and even some cracks appeared on his body. Giant Spirit Fist. The giant spirit god was shocked and angry when he saw that he was repelled by a single move, and immediately burst out with all his strength, and the imperial realm immortal power that had been brewing until now finally condensed on the fist of his giant body. Fist suppresses the Sky River. The giant spirit fist, the fist suppresses the Sky River. This is the Super Emperor's magical power of the ancient giant spirit clan, and it is also a move that brings the power of their giant spirit body to the extreme. As his fist fell, it seemed as if the entire sky was shattered by it, and the endless space was shattered into a vortex, sweeping towards Wu Yu from all directions. This punch, when suppressing the Sky River, even the stars in the sky can be completely shattered by his punch. Law of heaven and earth. Break the world, break it for me. Wu Yu used two magical powers at the same time. Law of heaven and earth made his body suddenly grow larger, forming a giant comparable to the giant spirit. At the same time, Wu Yu swung his huge fist, and the infinite and terrifying power of breaking the world suddenly exploded in the void in front of him, and he actually faced the giant spirit fist of the ancient giant spirit from the front. The two sides fought fist to fist, giant to giant, and a terrifying space-shattering force broke out. The next moment, the ancient giant spirit screamed miserably, and its entire huge body fell backwards. However, the giant spirit fist he had blasted out was actually shattered by the power of the broken world, causing him to scream and retreat. On the other hand, Wu Yu was not hurt at all, standing proudly in the middle. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 1756. No one expected that this battle would end like this. Taiwan Novel Network. Rightward arrow. The giant spirit god and Wu Yu punched each other. With this punch, the giant spirit god's giant fist was directly shattered. What kind of terrifying power is this? Even if Wu Yu used the magical power of Fa Tian Xiang Di, it is enough to show that his current strength has indeed reached the 5th level of the Emperor Immortal. It seems that what I said is right. Compared with Tianxin Dragon Emperor, you are far behind. Wu Yu sneered and turned back to the well of eternal life. His words almost made the giant spirit god so angry that he vomited blood. Just now, the giant spirit god said that the Heart Dragon Emperor was too old and useless that day. He couldn't even defeat a mere Wu Yu. As a result, now, he was completely slapped in the face by Wu Yu. He was a majestic ancient giant spirit god, but he was even inferior to the Tianxin Dragon Emperor. But forget it, the most important thing is that he lost to Wu Yu. This was a junior at the beginning, but now he has grown to such an extent. Many immortals watching the battle began to speculate. This Wu Yu must have received some powerful inheritance, right? Otherwise, how could he have made such rapid progress? It's so curious. No Emperor Immortal has ever grown up so fast. That's right. How long has it been since Wu Yu entered the Imperial Immortal? The Imperial Immortal trial he participated in seems to be right before his eyes. Obviously, Wu Yu's powerful defeat of the ancient giant spirit god has aroused the suspicion of many people. The news of defeating Tianxin Dragon Emperor came out before. After all, not many people saw it with their own eyes, so it was not as shocking as it is now. Just now, he shattered the ancient giant spirit god's fist with a punch, causing the ancient giant spirit god to scream and retreat. What kind of terrifying strength and talent is this? King Dhritarashtra also found it incredible. You must know that the ancient giant spirit god is an emperor immortal at the same level as him. If Wu Yu can defeat the ancient giant spirit god so easily, doesn't it mean that he can also easily defeat him, the king of the country? Isn't this guy too exaggerated? King Dhritarashtra couldn't believe it. How many years have passed since Wu Yu offended him until now? In heaven, most of the Emperor Immortals have not even been able to advance to the first level. And this Wu Yu, who was still a little immortal on Taixu Immortal Road, who could not attract their attention at all, suddenly grew up to the point where he could easily defeat him. Shocking, incredible, unimaginable. What kind of inheritance did he get? And what is the secret of that era artifact? Why is even Master Tai so persistent? King Dhritarashtra couldn't help but think. When he thought of this, he snorted coldly and said to Wu Yu, "Don't be complacent. You are here today only because of the era artifact in your hand. But next, that era artifact does not belong to you. I won't bother you to worry about it now," Wu Yu said coldly, not having a good look towards King Chiguo at all. Wu Yu certainly heard a lot about the discussions of the many immortals watching the battle around him. He found that many people were already curious about the inheritance he had received and wanted to know. After seeing him defeat the ancient giant spirit god with their own eyes, these immortals had some doubts, and they were even certain that he had received a heaven-defying inheritance. However, they didn't know what kind of inheritance Wu Yu had received. This made Wu Yu very confused. This doubt has been in his mind for a long time and has not been answered until now. That is, the Ruyi Golden Cudgel and the Monkey King were definitely the highest beings in heaven in the past, and they definitely had some status even in the heavenly Buddha immortal realm. But why now, neither the Emperor Immortal of the Heavenly Palace Immortal Realm nor the Holy Buddha of the Heavenly Buddha Immortal Realm have any impression of the great sage Kishan and the Ruyi Golden Cudgel? The memories of all the Holy Buddhas in the Heavenly Buddha Immortal Realm were interrupted millions of years ago. So, did the memories of the many emperors and immortals in the Heavenly Palace Immortal Realm also be interrupted millions of years ago? If we can figure out this point in time, it may bring Wu Yu one step closer to the truth. But now, he couldn't get any clues about this. In heaven, it is simply impossible for him to swallow other Emperor Immortals silently and obtain their memories, because the death of any Emperor Immortal in heaven will cause a sensation, and there is no way he can do it silently. It's getting late, it's time to set off. At this time, Patriarch Bodhi saw that he was a little delayed, so he said calmly. The Jade Emperor summoned Wu Yu. If they were too late, it would be a disgrace to the Jade Emperor. So next, Patriarch Bodhi paid no attention to the Heavenly King controlling the kingdom and the ancient giant spirit god. With his sleeves rolled up, he personally led Wu Yu into the well of eternal life and headed towards the highest heavenly palace. Lingxiao Heavenly Palace is the highest place in the entire heavenly palace. It is where the Jade Emperor lives. It can be said that he rules the entire 8,000 heavenly palace, 10,000 hells and 90,000 small worlds. Wu Yu was led upward by Patriarch Bodhi himself, and not long after, he appeared in a sea of clouds in the sky. Looking around, he saw a golden sea of clouds right in front of him. The clouds were rolling and rolling, and it was impossible to see the end at a glance. It was extremely spectacular. The entire sea of clouds was bathed in a burst of golden light. And that burst of golden light came from a huge palace with ethereal immortality. The entire palace showed a noble golden color, emitting golden light towards the surroundings. For some reason, when Wu Yu saw this golden palace, he subconsciously thought of the Supreme Buddha realm he had seen in the Tianfo Immortal Realm. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. The golden color in the Supreme Buddha realm, or the golden Buddha realm of the Supreme Buddha Xianzang, seemed to be exactly the same as the golden color of the Lingxiao Palace in front of him. Anyway, Wu Yu carefully recalled what he had seen at the time, and always felt that the two were extremely similar, and even difficult to distinguish. However, there are so many golden things in the world, maybe this is just a coincidence. At this time, Wu Yu and Bodhi Patriarch had reached the top floor of the Well of Eternal Life and could no longer go up. The golden palace that appeared in front of them was actually very far away, but the golden palace was too huge, so Wu Yu noticed it at a glance. And the place closest to them was a magnificent gate rising from the sea of clouds. Nantianmen. 3 golden characters were engraved on the magnificent gate. If you want to go to the Lingxiao Palace, you have to pass through the South Heaven Gate and a ferry road to get there. If you don't have enough status, you don't have the qualifications to pass through the South Heaven Gate. However, this time, Wu Yu was summoned by the Jade Emperor, and Bodhi Patriarch was one of the top emperors in the Tiangong Fairyland. This South Heaven Gate couldn't stop the two of them. Let's go, relax a little, at worst you can just give him the Ruyi Jinggu Bang. Bodhi Patriarch smiled kindly, comforted Wu Yu, and then walked in front to lead the way. Wu Yu nodded. Although he said so, he was still nervous at this time. He couldn't predict what would happen after he went to the Lingxiao Palace and met the Jade Emperor. The Lingxiao Palace at this time. As the protagonist of this event, Tai Genren, of course, has arrived. He closed his eyes and rested, and beside him stood Neza, the great god of the 3 altars and seas, standing respectfully beside him, looking out of the Lingxiao Palace from time to time, wanting to see when Wu Yu would arrive. Many emperors had already arrived around the palace, all discussing this matter in private. Among these emperors, there were a series of emperors, including Erlang Shenyangjian, Wuifang Supreme, and so on, all of whom were veteran emperors in the heavenly court. Even in the Lingxiao Palace, these emperors were qualified to speak. If Wu Yu came and looked around, he could find many unfamiliar faces that he had never seen before. For example, the 3 officials, Heaven Official, Earth Official, Water Official, and the Sun Star Lord, Wuid Star Lord, and Yusheng Zhenjun, plus the 4 valued officials, Wuki Zhenjun, etc., it was simply dazzling. This time, Tai Genren sued Wu Yu, saying that Wu Yu had taken the epic artifact, the Ruyi Jinggu Bang, which was traded to him, and had actually fled until now, which was despised by all the emperors and immortals. This matter attracted many emperors and immortals to come, wanting to see how the Jade Emperor would deal with it. At this time, the Jade Emperor had not arrived yet, and Wu Yu, one of the protagonists of the matter, had not arrived yet. The emperors and immortals in the field were talking about it one after another, discussing this matter in 2s and 3s. The main reason was that the emperors and immortals that Wu Yu knew had a lot of opinions about him, such as the pagoda-bearing heavenly king Li Jing and Erlang Shenyangjian, who had some grudges with Wu Yu. Especially the pagoda-bearing heavenly king Li Jing, now standing with Tai Genren, was very unhappy and scolded Wu Yu. After all, if Wu Yu had not defeated his grandson Li Tianji during the Emperor Immortal trial, how could his grandson Li Tianji become so decadent now? Looking at Li Tianji's current appearance, Li Jing wanted to kill Wu Yu 1,000 times, but he just didn't have the chance. Now, there is finally an opportunity to punish Wu Yu. Li Jing, the pagoda-bearing heavenly king, will never let him go. Even this time, Tai Genren came up to complain to the Jade Emperor. This idea was originally proposed by him, but he just asked Neza to mention it to Tai Genren. Many emperors and immortals in the field were waiting for the arrival of the Jade Emperor and Wu Yu. Some of them had not seen Wu Yu yet. They were a little curious about Wu Yu, but they didn't have a good impression of him. After all, in Tai Genren's complaint this time, Wu Yu was simply despicable and shameless. He took back the epic artifact that was traded to him and refused to pay. His character was too bad. While many emperors and immortals were waiting, finally, the Jade Emperor in a golden robe appeared from the side and stepped into the Lingxiao Palace. He was a handsome young man in a golden robe, with a scholarly air and a refined and solemn demeanor, which made people involuntarily respect him. However, his eyes seemed to be able to see through everything in the world, extremely deep, and contained immeasurable wisdom. Heaven-swallowing record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1757. Chapter 1751 Jade Emperor. When the Jade Emperor walked out, all the emperors in the Lingxiao Palace were respectful and solemn, with a look of reverence. This person is the emperor of the entire heaven, holding the highest authority in the heavenly palace. As soon as he appeared in front of the many emperors, the atmosphere in the entire Lingxiao Palace suddenly changed, becoming solemn, and brilliant. Beside the Jade Emperor, as usual, followed the Queen Mother. She was a young woman who was the most beautiful in the world, with a stunning beauty that could overwhelm the country. Her eyebrows were smart, her eyes were wise, and she was the best in the heaven. From the 8,000 heavens to the 10,000 hells, I am afraid that there is no woman as beautiful as her. And while she is absolutely beautiful, she is dignified, and all her behaviors are full of the highest charm between heaven and earth. Even if she just takes a step, 1 point more is too much, and 1 point less is too little, which implies the truth of heaven and earth. Most of the emperors in the field were familiar with the Jade Emperor and the Queen Mother, having seen them many times before. However, at this moment, a graceful figure following the Queen Mother attracted the attention of many emperors around. It was the girl from the immortal Phoenix realm, the daughter of the original Phoenix Emperor, the Fire Dance Phoenix Monarch. Or it was Nangong Wei in Wu Yu's eyes. At this moment, the Fire Dance Phoenix Monarch was wearing a black long skirt, with an elegant demeanor and an indifferent expression. Her face was beautiful and she looked very suitable even when she was with the Queen Mother. The emperors in the field were a little confused. Why would a genius girl from the immortal Phoenix realm follow the Queen Mother? In the eyes of these emperors, the Fire Dance Phoenix Monarch was still a relatively outstanding woman. After all, after the Emperor Immortal trial, she had defeated Wu Yu, who had won the first place in the Emperor Immortal trial. At that time, the black fire burned all over the field, which left a deep impression on many emperors. Although she lost to Wu Yu again after stepping into the Emperor Immortal realm, she is still one of the strongest young people in the entire heavenly court. At this moment, she actually appeared beside the Queen Mother. This was the first time that the Emperor Immortal saw the figure of Huo Wu Huangjun next to the Queen Mother, so they were a little confused and wondered what the relationship between Huo Wu Huangjun and the Queen Mother was. The Jade Emperor and the Queen Mother took their seats. The Huo Wu Huangjun who followed behind them respectfully called the Queen Mother Master and sat down at the side. This title finally made the Emperor Immortals in the field figure out who Huo Wu Huangjun was to the Queen Mother. No one thought that Huo Wu Huangjun would be the disciple of the Queen Mother. You know, the Queen Mother has never accepted any disciples until now. No wonder the 6 Phoenix Emperors of the immortal Phoenix realm were so secretive before. The great fortune of the Fire Dance Phoenix King actually came from the Queen Mother. It's incredible. Awesome, awesome. Being a disciple of the Queen Mother means that his status is on par with ours. Yes, even if he can't do it now, it will be a matter of time before he catches up with us. After all, he is a disciple of the Queen Mother. How can his future achievements be ordinary? Many emperors and immortals started to discuss with each other. In their words, they maintained respect for the Jade Emperor and the Queen Mother, and cast envious eyes on the Fire Dance Phoenix King who became the disciple of the Queen Mother. You have to know that these emperors and immortals in the field naturally have some descendants like the original Phoenix Emperor, such as Yang Jian has a son Yang Jian, Neza has a son Li Tianji, and so on. Compared with the Fire Dance Phoenix King, their descendants all seem to be eclipsed. Even Yang Jian and Li Tianji, who were originally favored by many emperors, are now far behind Huo Wu Huangjun, and there is no possibility that they will catch up in the future. After all, Huo Wu Huangjun became the disciple of Queen Mother. How powerful is that? The disciple trained by Queen Mother herself must be top-notch. Many emperors congratulated Queen Mother and congratulated her on accepting a gifted disciple. Queen Mother was obviously very satisfied with Huo Wu Huangjun. She accepted all the congratulations from many emperors and smiled solemnly, "Thank you for the congratulations from all the immortals." For a while, Huo Wu Huangjun became the protagonist of many emperors in the field. All emperors were basically talking about Huo Wu Huangjun. At this time, Wu Yu and Bodhi Patriarch finally came up. Wu Yu had a fight with the ancient giant spirit at the Well of Eternal Life, which delayed him for a while, so he arrived late. When they arrived, almost all the emperors who were supposed to come had already arrived. When Wu Yu entered the venue, he heard many people around him talking about the Fire Dance Phoenix Emperor. At first, he was a little confused and didn't know who it was. When he raised his head, he saw the black-dressed girl not far from the Queen Mother, and he was suddenly a little surprised. Fire Dance Phoenix Emperor is Fire Dance Phoenix Lord. It's Nangongwei. Wu Yu finally understood. Before, Nangongwei had become an emperor and achieved immortality. Of course, her title also changed, from Fire Dance Phoenix Lord to Fire Dance Phoenix Emperor. It can be said that this woman has an important position in Wu Yu's life. But even he himself felt that this was really a bad fate. Since Nangongwei and the soul of Fire Dance Phoenix Lord merged in her body, she has always appeared on the opposite side of Wu Yu. Every time she appeared in front of Wu Yu, basically nothing good would happen. The same is true now. As soon as Wu Yu saw her figure, he had a bad premonition, and from the words of many emperors around him, he learned that Nangongwei had actually become a disciple of the Queen Mother and became her disciple. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. What a noble identity is this! Even if Wu Yu is a disciple of Bodhi Patriarch, he can't be compared with her. What's more, Wu Yu came here to accept the trial today. He mainly had to face Taigenren. Now his identity is equivalent to a dishonest villain, and the situation in the whole venue seems to be very unfavorable to him. He then glanced at the Jade Emperor, and always felt that he seemed to have seen the temperament and style of the Jade Emperor somewhere. After thinking for a while, he remembered that the Supreme Buddha Xuanzang he saw in the Tianfo immortal realm was also so young and handsome, with deep wisdom in his eyes. Is there any connection between the Jade Emperor and Xuanzang? Wu Yu thought to himself. However, there are still some differences between the two sides. In his opinion, the Jade Emperor has a gentle demeanor, while the Supreme Buddha is more indifferent. Maybe I am just too sensitive. After all, they are the strongest beings in one area of the heaven. Maybe when they reach that level, they all look like this. Wu Yu couldn't figure it out. Originally, he thought that he might be able to get some clues after meeting the Jade Emperor. But now it seems that there is no clue at all. Under the leadership of Bodhi Patriarch, Wu Yu greeted the Jade Emperor, Queen Mother, and many other emperors and immortals in the field one by one, which was considered to be a courtesy. For Wu Yu's arrival, the Jade Emperor and Queen Mother had no expression for the time being, and their attitudes could not be seen. So Wu Yu could only take one step at a time. When he saluted Taigenren, he didn't expect that Taigenren was too lazy to be polite with him and directly criticized him. "Wu Yu, why did you and I come to the Lingxiao Palace today? I believe you know it in your heart. Let's talk about it, how about it?" With the approval of the Jade Emperor, Taigenren began to tell the whole story. Including the beginning, Wu Yu took the initiative to come to him and wanted him to help revive his sister, and later agreed to exchange it with the epic artifact, but in the end, the epic artifact suddenly flew back to Wu Yu's hands. In fact, Taigenren had already spread the whole story of this matter before, and many emperors and immortals present were very clear about it. When Taigenren began to tell the story, several emperors and immortals who had been watching coldly on the side finally couldn't help but exaggerate and accuse Wu Yu. The main ones were Erlang Shen Yang Jian and Tota Heavenly King Li Jing. For Yang Jian, his son Yang Jian could have won the Emperor Immortal trial and finally broke through to become an Emperor Immortal, but in the end, Wu Yu got the advantage. Naturally, he was very unhappy with Wu Yu. As for the pagoda-bearing heavenly king Li Jing, his grandson Li Tianji's fate was even more miserable. The battle with Wu Yu in the Emperor Immortal trial directly destroyed Li Tianji's confidence and ruined his heart of cultivation. Although Li Tianji's suicide was prevented at that time, Li Tianji's whole person was basically ruined. Therefore, whether it was Yang Jian or Li Jing, they would not have a good face when they saw Wu Yu. Especially now, it is a good opportunity for them to add insult to injury. Yang Jian spoke first. "Lord Jade Emperor, Wu Yu is treacherous. He promised to hand over the epic artifact to the immortal, but he went back on his word. Such a trend must not be encouraged in the heavenly court. Therefore, I propose that this boy should be severely punished." Li Jing also added fuel to the fire and said bitterly, "Not only that. I heard that some time ago, Wu Yu even went to the Immortal Dragon Emperor realm and defeated the Tianxin Dragon Emperor in front of all the immortal dragons. Such behavior is simply disrespectful to the elders and unruly. If he is not punished, I don't know how many mistakes he will make in the future." The other emperors and immortals present nodded after listening to their words. Many emperors and immortals did not know Wu Yu in the first place, so of course they would not speak for Wu Yu. That would offend Tai Genren, Erlang Shen, Li Jing, and a series of emperors and immortals. What's more, Wu Yu was in the wrong in this matter, so it was even more impossible for someone to speak for him. Of course, many emperors and immortals held an attitude of indifference and did not add insult to injury to Wu Yu, but just watched from the side. In the Lingxiao Palace, after Yang Jian and Li Jing, some emperors and immortals expressed their opinions one after another, saying that Wu Yu should also be punished, but first, Wu Yu had to return the Ruyi Jingbang to Tai Genren. After listening to the opinions of many emperors and immortals, the Jade Emperor finally nodded and began to speak. His voice was very crisp, like the gurgling of flowing water, as if it contained the most profound mystery between heaven and earth. He looked at Wu Yu in a gentle and elegant manner, and then asked, "Wu Yu, where did you get this epic artifact called Ruyi Jingbang? After all, there has never been such an epic god in the entire heaven." When Wu Yu heard the Jade Emperor speak, he immediately knew that this was the beginning of his interrogation, or trial. If he doesn't handle it carefully, the consequences may be very bad, so he immediately calmed down and began to think about how to answer the Jade Emperor's question. "Something happened to me in the evening, so I will update one chapter. I will make up for 3 chapters tomorrow." Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 1758. The Ruyi Jingbang is supposed to be very powerful, and many people in the entire heaven should know about it. But Wu Yu has never found anyone who recognizes it. When the Jade Emperor asked, Wu Yu said the words he had thought of long ago, and said respectfully, "This thing is what I got in my dream. When I was still in the mortal world, this Ruyi Jingbang appeared in my mind. I followed the exercises in it and practiced all the way, and finally I became an immortal." His words can be said to be flawless. Although it sounds ridiculous to get the epic artifact in a dream, this Ruyi Jingbang is too powerful. If Wu Yu said that he got it through other means, the emperors and immortals around him would not believe it. In comparison, saying that the Ruyi Jingbang was obtained in a dream is more mysterious and more credible. After hearing his words, many emperors and immortals around him secretly sighed, "How can Wu Yu be so lucky that he can get such a treasure even in his dreams?" You know, even the emperor immortals like Erlang Shen and Tota Heavenly King are jealous of this Ruyi Jingbang. Even the top emperor immortal like Tai Genren has been chasing after it, which shows how precious it is. Then, the Jade Emperor asked gently, "My dear ministers, you once gave this Ruyi Jingbang to Tai Genren as an exchange. So, now do you want to keep your promise and return this Ruyi Jingbang to him?" When this question was asked, the emperor immortals in the field all paid attention. After all, this was the reason why they gathered in the Lingxiao Palace. I am also very sorry to the real person. I don't know if there is any other way to remedy it. Wu Yu pondered for a while, and asked instead, I can give the real person other compensation. As long as he can propose it, I will be willing to do it. He wanted to settle the dispute and wanted to keep the Ruyi Jinggubang, so he proposed this method. He gave Tei Genren other things in exchange for the Ruyi Jinggubang. However, Tei Genren did not agree and glanced at Wu Yu, I want the Ruyi Jinggubang. Or unless you can return the eternal lotus to me, that's fine too, just consider it as you regret it. That said, but in fact, Tei Genren was very sure that Wu Yu would never return the eternal lotus to him. What's more, the eternal lotus has been shaped into a lotus holy body, and it is impossible to become an eternal lotus again. Even if Wu Yu is willing, no one can do it. So Tei Genren was just joking. Wu Yu knew that he was joking. However, even if he could really return the eternal lotus to him, Wu Yu would not do so. After all, in his heart, Minglong has a very important position. Since he has let her live, there is no reason to let her die again. Genren, really don't think about it anymore. Do you want other compensation? Wu Yu was a little entangled. This Tei Genren is so stubborn and difficult to deal with. Could it be that he must hand over the Ruyi Jinggubang today? The Tei Genren nodded, that's right. I don't want anything except this Ruyi Jinggubang. The negotiation seemed to be deadlocked. Neither Tei Genren nor Wu Yu was willing to give in. If it was just Wu Yu, perhaps the surrounding emperors would have put pressure on him, but there was Bodhi Patriarch next to Wu Yu. Although Bodhi Patriarch did not speak, but just closed his eyes to rest, as long as he stood there, the emperors dared not give him face. So at this time, the Jade Emperor could only make the decision. When the emperors in the field cast their eyes on the Jade Emperor, the Jade Emperor smiled gently. He looked at Wu Yu and said softly, you got my 10th grade Fairy King seal, and I love talents very much. How about this, Bodhi Patriarch, are you willing to give up and transfer Wu Yu to my school? If he can become my disciple, I will give Tei Genren other compensation on your behalf. When these words came out, the emperors in the field were shocked. The Jade Emperor actually took a fancy to Wu Yu and wanted to accept him as his disciple? You know, the Jade Emperor had never accepted a disciple before. If both Bodhi Patriarch and Wu Yu agreed, he would be the chief disciple of the Jade Emperor, and his status would be extremely respected. By then, most of the emperors in the field would probably have to give him a respectful title when they saw Wu Yu. Tei Genren was very unhappy and his face was very dark. He didn't expect that the Jade Emperor would actually take a fancy to Wu Yu. Li Jing, the pagoda-bearing heavenly king, who was standing aside, secretly reminded him, don't panic, Genren. Although you still can't get the Ruyi Jinggubang, what the Jade Emperor can take out is much better than what that young boy can take out. I believe that the Jade Emperor will never treat Genren unfairly. Tei Genren nodded slowly, and his face was slightly better, but he was still very unhappy overall. After all, he originally came to call for punishment, but in the end, the person he called for punishment was actually taken a fancy to. No one would be in a good mood if they were replaced. Unless the Jade Emperor can really give him a reward that satisfies him, he probably won't agree with this result. When the Jade Emperor said this, Wu Yu himself was actually the most shocked. He glanced at Bodhi Patriarch, but Bodhi Patriarch still closed his eyes and said with a kind smile, whether you are willing to switch to the Jade Emperor's sect, this should naturally be asked by Wu Yu himself. As long as Wu Yu is willing, I naturally have no objection. Bodhi Patriarch is a very good and gentle person. Even in the current situation where he wants to take away his disciple, he is not angry, but is thinking about Wu Yu. After all, if Wu Yu wants to keep the Ruyi Golden Cudgel, he must worship the Jade Emperor as his master. This chapter is not finished yet, please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. In this way, the choice was left in Wu Yu's hands. His mood was a little complicated. In these days, Patriarch Bodhi was a highly respected mentor to him, and he had helped him a lot on the road to becoming an emperor. Whether it was the demonic battlefield, the imperial immortal trial, or the most basic sermons from the Patriarch, he benefited a lot. It can be said that without the apprenticeship of Patriarch Bodhi, Wu Yu would probably be far from where he is today. Wu Yu will never forget Patriarch Bodhi's kindness. He glanced at Patriarch Bodhi and found that he was still concentrating with his eyes closed. He was very calm about the matter. He didn't seem to be surprised. He didn't know if he had expected that the Jade Emperor wanted to accept Wu Yu as his disciple. Wu Yu didn't know this. In his eyes, Patriarch Bodhi has always been a very mysterious elder. Few people can know what he is thinking. In the entire heaven, Wu Yu always felt that there was something different between Patriarch Bodhi and other emperors and immortals. But he couldn't tell exactly what was different. Finally, Wu Yu finally made a decision, saluted the Jade Emperor and said, "If you can allow me to retain my status as a disciple of Patriarch Bodhi, I will be willing to join your disciples." He made this decision after careful consideration. He now wants to find out the truth about what happened back then, so he must go higher, or in other words, get closer to the truth. In the entire heaven, the Jade Emperor may be the one who is closest to the truth back then. Wu Yu thought to himself, if he could become a disciple of the Jade Emperor and get closer to him, maybe he could see something and learn some secrets that he didn't know before. Regarding the world of demons and gods, the Monkey King, and the immortal realm of Heavenly Buddha, there are all hidden mysteries that Wu Yu wants to figure out all the time. At the same time, he did not want to betray Patriarch Bodhi, so he proposed to retain the status of master and disciple with Patriarch Bodhi. If it were just a title, nothing substantial, it would not embarrass the Jade Emperor. Hearing what Wu Yu said, the Jade Emperor suddenly laughed. Okay, that's very good. In that case, you will worship me as your teacher. As for Patriarch Bodhi, he is still your teacher in name, and no one can change it." This meant that he had agreed, which made Wu Yu look happy. Originally, he thought that with the status of the Jade Emperor, he might not be willing to let him retain his master-disciple status with Patriarch Bodhi. But now it seems that the Jade Emperor is still relatively open-minded and doesn't care too much. In this way, Wu Yu had nothing to hesitate, and it could be said that everyone was happy with the whole thing. The only person who is unhappy now may be Master Tai. However, the Jade Emperor could not ignore him, so he went on to say to Master Tai, "Master Tai, in order to compensate for your loss, I will give you a galaxy pill. What do you think?" Upon hearing this, Master Tai's expression suddenly changed, and he suddenly became joyful. "Thank you so much, Jade Emperor." Master Tai smiled happily. Obviously, he is very satisfied with the compensation of this galaxy pill. To him, the value of this galaxy pill is definitely more than the Ruyi golden cudgel. Wu Yu didn't know what the galaxy pill was, but now was not the time to think about it. At this moment, apprenticeship is the most important thing. He immediately knelt down and said solemnly, "Disciple Wu Yu, please pay respects to the master." From now on, the disciple must strictly abide by the master's teachings, abide by the heavenly rules and practice hard, and he will definitely be worthy of the name of the master. "Wu Yu, please get up." The Jade Emperor smiled gently and raised his hand, causing Wu Yu to stand up. The apprenticeship ceremony was not a grand one, but anyone could see the seriousness in Wu Yu's expression. During this process, Nangang Wei, or Emperor Xuanhuan, remained silent throughout, following Queen Mother 11, looking at the scene with a cold expression. As for the Pagoda King Li Jing and the Erlang god Yang Jian, they were naturally quite unhappy. Originally, they wanted to take this opportunity to teach Wu Yu a lesson and let him know the consequences of offending them. In the blink of an eye, the Jade Emperor actually accepted him as his disciple. It was like a slap on the spot, making them look gloomy, unhappy, and very embarrassed. But this was the decision made by the Jade Emperor, and they had no way to change it. They could only watch Wu Yu's apprenticeship end and truly become a disciple of the Jade Emperor. Wu Yu is my first disciple, so naturally he should be given a title. What do the immortals think? The Jade Emperor then smiled and asked many emperors and immortals in the field. Naturally, the immortals would not violate it. They all nodded in agreement, and then curiously asked, then what title should be given to him? The Jade Emperor glanced at Wu Yu, his gentle gaze condensed, and he faintly said 4 words, Monkey King. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1759. When the Jade Emperor said these 4 words, Wu Yu's heart was shocked. He never thought that the Jade Emperor would give himself such a title. You must know that the inheritance of his Ruyi golden cudgel comes from the Monkey King. For this name, no one in the entire heaven has ever mentioned it. In Wu Yu's opinion, all the emperors and immortals have lost the memory of the great sage Qishan, and it is normal not to know this name. But now, the Jade Emperor has given him such a title. Does this mean anything? Wu Yu found that he could not see through the Jade Emperor in front of him at all. Could it be that the Jade Emperor still has memories of the Monkey King? This is one of the possibilities, but if it is true, then how could the Jade Emperor fail to recognize the Ruyi golden cudgel? After all, the Ruyi golden cudgel is the inheritance of the Monkey King, and it is an iconic thing. Once in Saint Qishan, the scene Wu Yu saw on the stone tablet also showed that the Jade Emperor was one of the people who surrounded and suppressed the 4 of them and killed them. If the Jade Emperor still has the memory of that time, I'm afraid I will be in danger. However, the possibility that he still has the memory of that time is very small. Wu Yu found that he was completely confused. Judging from all the clues he has obtained now, it is impossible to find out the truth back then. Even with the appearance of the Jade Emperor, he even got himself involved. He thought about so many things, but he was always vigilant and did not show it at all to avoid making people suspicious. Great Sage equaling heaven, what do the immortals think of this title? The Jade Emperor repeated it again, with joy on his face, as if he was excited about thinking of a good name. Judging from his current performance, it seems that this title has no special meaning at all. This title is not bad, it is very suitable for His Majesty's disciple status. Many emperors and immortals praised him one after another, but some emperors and immortals asked, in addition to this title, what other official position should be given to him. In terms of official positions, this Monkey King can be regarded as a sinecure. The Jade Emperor thought about it and did not let Wu Yu become an immortal official. Even though he is a sinecure, as His Majesty's disciple, the status of the Monkey King is extraordinary. Congratulations to Your Majesty on having a disciple with extraordinary talents. Many emperors and immortals congratulated him again. From their eyes, it was obvious that they had a lot of envy for Wu Yu. After all, being able to become a disciple of the Jade Emperor was equivalent to reaching the sky in one step. Moreover, the title of Monkey King is also quite powerful. In terms of status, although it is not stated clearly, it is at least comparable to the Emperor Immortals of Erlang Shenyang Jian's level. In other words, from now on, many emperors and immortals in the field would respectfully call him Monkey King when they saw Wu Yu again. If the current King Chiguo and the giant spirit god saw Wu Yu again, they would never dare to treat him with the same attitude as before. You know, at this moment, Wu Yu has become a disciple of the Jade Emperor, and his status has already surpassed the level of the giant spirit god and the 4 heavenly kings. Even the 9 dragon emperors of the immortal dragon emperor realm would respectfully address Wu Yu as great sage if they saw him again. Since you have consecrated the great sage Qishan, Wu Yu, The 7,500th level in the heaven is the Saint Kishan. Now it is a land without an owner, so I will reward it to you, the Jade Emperor said with a smile. For him, it is a matter of course that this heavenly palace rewards his disciples. But to Wu Yu, this seemed to mean something. First, he was given the title of Great Sage Kishan, and then he was rewarded with the title of Sage Kishan. What exactly does this contain? Wu Yu couldn't think clearly at all. He only knows that Saint Kishan used to be the first-level palace belonging to the Great Sage Kishan, but it was destroyed during the siege and has been sealed up until now. Even the Yuanpeng Tian and Zuyan Tian, where Marshal Tianpeng and General Xuanhuan are located, are in the same sealed state. Does this Jade Emperor know something? In other words, do you still remember some things from back then? Wu Yu had no clue at all. At this moment, he could only salute, "Disciple Wu Yu, thank you Master for the reward." Regarding this, many emperors and immortals in the field became envious. The first-level heavenly palace was something that many emperors and immortals did not have. After all, among the 8,000 heavenly palaces, many heavenly palaces do not have enough spiritual energy. Even if they were given to emperors, no emperors would be able to appreciate them. Only a small part of the Tiangong immortals have strong aura, and they basically have owners. For example, Qianyuan Tian is the territory of Master Tai. There is also Fangkuntian, which is actually the territory of Patriarch Bodhi. However, Patriarch Bodhi has a gentle personality. There are many other immortals practicing in Fangkuntian. Those who do not belong to his disciples will not be driven away. Now that Wu Yu had just become a disciple of the Jade Emperor, he was actually rewarded with a heavenly palace, which was simply enviable to everyone. The entire Lingxiao palace was filled with envious and congratulatory sounds. Many emperors and immortals came to make friends with Wu Yu, and the whole scene became quite lively. For the Jade Emperor's first disciple, they certainly wanted to have a friendship mentality. Originally they thought Wu Yu was going to take him this time, but unexpectedly, he made a shocking turn and became a disciple of the Jade Emperor. Before this, no emperor could have imagined it. In the Lingxiao Palace, many emperors and immortals discussed with each other and congratulated each other warmly for a while, and many emperors and immortals came to make friends with Wu Yu. Soon after, the Jade Emperor discussed with the Queen Mother, and then pressed his hands, signaling the many emperors and immortals to be quiet. This chapter is not over yet, please click on the next page to continue reading. In order to celebrate our respective disciples, the Queen Mother has decided to hold a peach feast in 10 years, and will invite the gods and immortals from heaven and hell to participate. The Jade Emperor glanced at the immortals and said with a smile. As soon as this news came out, all the emperors and immortals in the field were surprised. They are going to hold a peach feast. You know, the Queen Mother's peaches are the top immortals in the world. They only bloom and bear fruit once every 100,000 years. It is a great fortune to be able to taste one. Even for the emperors and immortals, it can increase their cultivation by a huge amount. For a while, many emperors and immortals discussed enthusiastically, and their faces were filled with joy. Wu Yu was also a little surprised when he heard their discussion. Because from the chats of the emperors around him, he could guess that each of the peaches of the Queen Mother was equivalent to a holy Buddha relic, which could increase the cultivation of the emperors. Every peach feast was a place that countless emperors in the heavenly court were extremely eager to attend. Once they were lucky enough to participate, they could gain a lot of improvement, even equivalent to tens of thousands of years of their usual cultivation. None of the emperors in the field had expected that the Jade Emperor and the Queen Mother would be willing to hold a peach feast for the two new disciples. This shows how much they valued the Fire Dance Phoenix Emperor and Wu Yu. Of course, now they all called Wu Yu the Great Sage equaling heaven, and he was a well-known emperor in the entire heaven. To be able to let the Jade Emperor hold a peach feast specifically for the two of them, is there any need to say more about this status? Even compared to Erlang Shenyang Jian, Wu Yu was not at all weak, and now the two sides were completely equal in status. They were all very moved. Wu Yu was originally just a mortal who had cultivated to become an emperor immortal. At best, he was just a disciple of Bodhi Patriarch. And how many disciples did Bodhi Patriarch have? Those mortal emperor immortals who had cultivated to become emperors did not have a very high status in the entire heaven. Wu Yu was able to make rapid progress just by relying on the epic artifact he got in his dream, and finally became the first disciple of the Jade Emperor. This was really a step to heaven. Wu Yu. At this time, the Jade Emperor specifically ordered, "The peaches in the peach garden are ripe. In the next 10 years, since you have nothing to do, why don't you supervise the peach garden?" Disciple obeys the order. Wu Yu immediately replied and respectfully accepted the order. This was his first job since he became the Jade Emperor. He certainly could not refuse it, and supervising the peach garden should not be difficult. Moreover, it is said that the peach garden is in the next level of the Lingxiao Palace, which can be said to be very close to the Jade Emperor. Perhaps, some clues can be found when supervising the peach garden. Just a reminder, don't eat peaches secretly, ha ha ha, the Jade Emperor laughed, causing many emperors and immortals around him to laugh kindly. Supervising the peach garden is a good job, and many emperors and immortals want to do it, but unfortunately they can't find the way. Wu Yu can go directly to supervise the peach garden, which really makes him valued by the Jade Emperor. As for stealing peaches, the emperors and immortals don't think anyone can do such a thing. After all, peaches are extremely important to the emperors and immortals of the entire heaven, and they are also things that Queen Mother attaches great importance to. Once anyone steals peaches, it is a serious crime that violates the rules of heaven. Even the disciples of the Jade Emperor would never dare to commit such a serious crime, so no one is worried about this at all. When the Jade Emperor reminded them, he seemed to be joking, which made all the emperors and immortals laugh out loud. The whole Lingxiao Palace was filled with a festive atmosphere. After it was really decided to hold the peach banquet, the Lingxiao Palace finally adjourned. Who would have thought that the original Tai Genren came to sue Wu Yu and wanted to take back the Ruyi Jingbang, but it would eventually turn into such a festive scene. Many emperors and immortals walked out of the Lingxiao Palace, their faces full of expectations and joy. After all, many of them were qualified to participate in the peach banquet. This was an opportunity created for them by Wu Yu and Nangang Wei, and it was not so easy to get. And what happened in the Lingxiao Palace this time soon spread throughout the Heavenly Palace. For a period of time, the entire Heavenly Palace immortal realm was shaken by this incident. Not only the Heavenly Palace, but even in the 10,000 hells, countless immortal emperors and demons were shocked. Sorry, I have a headache today and didn't write 3 chapters. I will try hard tomorrow. Heaven Swallowing Record. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1760. The Jade Emperor and the Queen Mother are the top figures in the entire Tiangong immortal realm, and the leaders of all the emperors and immortals. The two of them have never accepted any disciples. Unexpectedly, this time, they both accepted a disciple at the same time. The Jade Emperor accepted Wu Yu and gave him the title of Great Sage equaling heaven, while the Queen Mother accepted the daughter of the Phoenix Emperor, the ancestor of the Phoenix Immortal Beast clan, the Fire Dance Phoenix Monarch. Of course, now she is called Fire Dance Phoenix Emperor. After all, she has already entered the existence of the Emperor Immortal. The entire Tiangong immortal realm was shocked. Not long after, almost the entire Tiangong immortal realm had known the news, so the gods were asking around for news about the Great Sage equaling heaven and the Fire Dance Phoenix Emperor. They asked mainly to prevent themselves from not recognizing them when they meet in the future, making jokes, and offending each other. As for some high-level and top-level emperors and immortals, they are very excited now, mainly because of the Peach Festival. Every time the Peach Festival is held, their cultivation will be greatly improved, which is something they are looking forward to. For this reason, many emperors are grateful to Wu Yu and Nangong Wei in their hearts. After all, this peach festival is specially held for them. When the whole Tiangong immortal domain began to spread this matter, the protagonist of this matter, Wu Yu, had already come to the location of the peach garden under the guidance of a fairy from the Lingxiao Palace. For the next 10 years, Wu Yu will guard the peach garden. The fairy who led Wu Yu was a fairy who worshipped the Jade Emperor in the Lingxiao Palace. She was also an emperor, named Xuexia Fairy. This fairy wore a snow-colored gauze skirt, her appearance was 1 in a million, her skin was crystal clear, and her eyes were moving. She was considered a first-class beauty even in the heavenly court. Along the way, Fairy Xuexia was very interested in Wu Yu and kept asking him some questions. After all, Wu Yu was now a big celebrity in the Jade Emperor and even in the entire heavenly court. Even at Fairy Xuexia's level, she was quite envious of Wu Yu. Great sage, the peach garden is the place with the most concentrated immortal spirit in the entire heavenly court. Even if you practice in it, your progress will be rapid. Fairy Xuexia said with a chuckle, envious of him very much. In fact, there is nothing to guard in the peach garden. It must be that the Jade Emperor wants you to practice well in the peach garden so that you can improve your cultivation as soon as possible. Even if it is only 10 years, the effect of practicing in the peach garden is also considerable. Wu Yu nodded while listening. Although he is now of a respected status, he is still unclear about the identity and motives of the Jade Emperor. It can be said that he is walking on thin ice. He also respects Fairy Xuexia very much. The other party has been worshipping the Jade Emperor and must know much more about the Jade Emperor than he does. So he definitely needs to make friends, or at least not make enemies, otherwise Fairy Xuexia will say something bad about him in front of the Jade Emperor, which is not good. From Fairy Xuexia's story, Wu Yu knew that the peach garden belonged to the Queen Mother, and it was the place with the most concentrated fairy spirit in the entire heavenly court, so it could grow the Queen Mother's peaches. In other places, such fruits cannot be produced at all. This made Wu Yu look forward to the peach garden. Recently, he was sprinting to the 4th level of the Eternal Emperor Immortal, and the Reincarnation Emperor prison in the Heaven-Swallowing Emperor realm had not yet been built. Therefore, he definitely needed a lot of fairy spirit to practice. Although he could make up for this by devouring the relics of the Holy Buddha and the corpses of the Emperor Demon, in fact, he had devoured a lot of the relics of the Holy Buddha and the corpses of the Emperor Demon recently, resulting in quite obvious side effects. In the entire Heaven-Swallowing Emperor realm, black gas is easy to appear, and it becomes unstable. Wu Yu was afraid that if he was not careful, the mortals he had created before would die in it again, and what was more serious was that the heaven-devouring Emperor realm would collapse, which would be a loss. Therefore, the rich fairy spirit was a timely help to Wu Yu. Along the way, Wu Yu was also asking the Fairy Xuexia about some things, including the situation of Nangong Wei. He asked, "Excuse me, Fairy, do you know when the Fire Dance Phoenix Emperor came to the Queen Mother?" Wu Yu now didn't know much about Nangong Wei's situation. Compared with the past, her personality was neither like Nangong Wei nor like the Fire Dance Phoenix King. So Wu Yu was still quite concerned about her situation. Fairy Xuexia shook her head and said softly, "I'm not very clear either." At this time, the fairy seemed to have some gossip in her heart, and asked with great interest, "I heard that there seems to be some grievances between the two of you." It can be said that there is a little bit. Wu Yu didn't know how to answer, so he could only respond vaguely. "In fact, in my opinion, you two are really a perfect match. You see, not only are you both super geniuses in the heavenly palace, but one of you is a disciple of the Jade Emperor and the other is a disciple of the Queen Mother. They are a perfect match." Fairy Xuexia smiled softly. "Well, I'm already married." Wu Yu certainly wouldn't let her say such nonsense. It wouldn't matter if Fairy Xuexia just said such nonsense, but if such remarks were spread out, it would be bad. He would be strangled to death by Lupin. Of course I know this. Great sage, don't be nervous. In fact, I'm just talking casually. It's just that the whole heavenly palace is discussing you and that fire dance Phoenix Emperor. It's impossible not to be curious. After Fairy Swexia said this, her eyes finally lit up. At this time, a huge peach garden appeared in front of her and Wu Yu. In the peach garden, there are towering trees everywhere, which are the Queen Mother's peach trees. Each tree is much larger than the peach trees in the human world. The fairy spirit is lingering around, which is a real fairyland. This chapter is not over yet, please click the next page to continue reading. Just one look is enough to make people yearn for it. This is the peach garden. Fairy Swexia introduced it, with some envy in her eyes. After all, she is also an emperor fairy, and she knows very well how honored it is to practice in the peach garden, which is of great help to the improvement of cultivation. If you can practice in it for a long time, the effect is definitely not less than taking a Queen Mother's peach. This entire peach garden is guarded by the Queen Mother of the West Yongning Killing Array. No one can enter unless they have the Killing Array key. Fairy Swexia said as she handed a Killing Array key wrapped in fairy spirit to Wu Yu. As long as you carry this Killing Array key, you will not be considered as intruding by the Queen Mother of the West Yongning Killing Array, and you can enter the peach garden safely. Thank you for leading the way, Fairy. Wu Yu took the Killing Array key and thanked Fairy Swexia very respectfully. You are welcome, great sage. Fairy Swexia smiled softly with her hands covering her mouth. Her smile was so beautiful that she was stunningly beautiful. In fact, there is nothing to see in this peach garden. The great sage should mainly seize the opportunity and practice well in these 10 years. After all, the fairy spirit in the peach garden is extremely rich, and there are no such conditions in other places. Yes, Wu Yu nodded and walked towards the peach garden. Also, don't steal the peaches. Fairy Swexia pursed her lips, chuckled, and reminded, the Queen Mother knows how many peaches there are in the peach garden. At the peach banquet 10 years later, not a single one can be missing. I understand, Wu Yu nodded seriously. He looked around the peach garden and felt that the fairy spirit in this place was indeed extremely rich. It was not easy for him to practice with such a rich fairy spirit. As for the peaches, he certainly couldn't have the idea of stealing them. Even though he had just become a disciple of the Jade Emperor, he knew very well how strict the rules in the heavenly court were. If he really stole the peaches of the Queen Mother, the consequences would definitely be very bad. Next, Fairy Swexia turned and left. It must be said that the fairies in the heavenly court are all very charming. Even a random Fairy Swexia has a breathtaking temperament and unique taste. No wonder Nanshan Wanjiao likes to pick flowers everywhere. Wu Yu smiled and shook his head, then turned and walked towards the peach garden. He carried the Killing Formation key with him, so the Queen Mother of the West Yongning Killing Formation would not attack him. So he entered the peach garden smoothly. He didn't feel it when he was outside the garden, but as soon as he stepped into the garden, he smelled an extremely tempting fragrance, which came from the fragrance of ripe peaches. Such a strong fragrance is even stronger than Wu Yu's initial estimate. He looked at the round fairy peaches on the huge Queen Mother's peach tree, and couldn't help but sigh, it is worthy of being the Queen Mother's peach that many emperors and immortals are jealous of. The fairy spirit contained in any fairy peach in this peach garden can be compared to a holy Buddha relic. Such a huge temptation is in front of Wu Yu, but his original intention has not wavered at all. It's not easy to get to this day, he must not ruin the originally good opportunity because of greed for a while. According to the current situation, Wu Yu might be able to get closer to the Jade Emperor and get some clues about those things. Once he stole the peaches, everything would be over. Wu Yu was not so brainless, and his endurance had always been strong. As long as he was clear-headed, he would not make mistakes. The entire Queen Mother's peach garden was filled with an extremely rich fairy spirit. Wu Yu sat down under a Queen Mother's peach tree, closed his eyes, and began to feel the rich fairy spirit around him. The fairy spirit here is indeed too rich. If you practice here for 10,000 years, it would probably be equivalent to swallowing the holy Buddha's relics for several years. And in the Tianfo immortal realm for 10,000 years, you may not be able to snatch the holy Buddha's relics at ordinary times, not to mention that the side effects of swallowing the holy Buddha's relics are too great. Wu Yu thought to himself, began to calm down, and immersed himself in practice. He has now reached a critical stage in his cultivation. Once the reincarnation imperial prison in the heaven-devouring imperial realm is constructed and the yin-yang reincarnation is formed in the imperial realm, he will be able to enter the fourth level of the eternal emperor immortal. The emperor realm immortal power will definitely increase greatly, allowing his overall strength to soar. In fact, although Wu Yu is now of noble status and is comparable to Erlang Shen Yang Jian, there is still a big gap in strength compared to Erlang Shen. Now Wu Yu can only defeat the fifth level of Emperor Immortals such as Tianxin Dragon Emperor and Ancient Giant Spirit God. Facing Emperor Immortals of higher realms, he still cannot fight. This made him never relax his cultivation. He knew very well that if he wanted to avenge the Monkey King, his realm must at least be raised to the peak. Before this, even if he figured out the truth, he could not avenge himself.